Good morning, my name is Jason from Motec Performance. We're a Mopar shop here in Southern California. Richard had asked me to shoot a video of some of the concerns on the Roadrunner, so let's get started. First thing I wanted to do actually was to show you our shop, just to show that we do actually have some Mopars in here, and it is our specialty. First thing I wanted to go over was the undercarriage. I wanted to show the lower control arms, specifically the bushings in the lower control arms. As you can see, the bushing is looks like it's actually completely missing. This is a fragment of what's left of the bushing that's in there. What it should look like is this. This is a lower control arm bushing that we've actually already restored for a different car. As you can see, the bushing should come all the way out to this shoulder. This whole thing here is actually part of the bushing. And as you can see on this car, it's all but missing. That shoulder is right there. So that, as you can see, the bushing is actually completely gone. The next thing we wanted to go over was the there is actually an oil leak right there. I believe that's coming from the valve cover gaskets. Up inside there, we have a small leak here at the backup light switch on the transmission. Generally, when we see a vehicle with this much fresh undercoating on the floor pans, that usually means that something is trying to be hidden. There actually is active rust on the vehicle still. Here we have the rear leaf spring bushings. As you can see, they're rather rotted out. There's not a whole lot left of the bushing on this side. This side is kind of what it should look like. This side, it's pretty much gone, and it is like that on both sides. As you can see on this side, it's the inner one that's pretty much missing. The outer one is in better shape, but certainly not what I would call new. Next, I wanted to go over the trunk pan and sheet metal repairs on the rear. What we're looking at here is the inner wheelhouse, and as you can see, the sheet metal was not properly welded or attached. It's actually loose. You can see fairly large gaps. Here is where the factory trunk pan had just been cut, and as you can see, is again a rather large gap. The replacement trunk pan was just set on top of the old sheet metal and appears to have been glued and screwed into place. It's not welded. Wheelhouse and trunk pan on the other side. Passenger side, again, you can see the sheet metal was just set on top of it. And here you can actually see one of the screws where it was, that's what is being used to hold it in place. And again, you can see rather large gaps where the sheet metal is sitting on top, and again on the wheelhouse here, not actually even welded in, not even affixed. You can actually see daylight above here where the holes are. Definitely not the proper way to replace a trunk pan. Here on the rear bumper, we got the bumper bolts. You can see completely mismatched, and even better, not even tight. You can see it just kind of flopping around in there, not even really in much of anything. All kinds of interesting hardware. These bolts holding the muffler brackets in are actually metric. Somebody has managed to jam some metric bolts into the standard threads in a frame rail, and since these nuts are in the frame rail, that's not easily repaired, so the threads now are probably actually damaged in the frame rail. Wanted to take a little bit of time to go over the paint. As you can see, some pretty good pinholing, pretty good orange peel. The vehicle is actually finished this way completely. It's kind of hard to see in the camera, but you can see big waves in the paint. Certainly not what I would call laser straight. There's lots of dirt in the paint, lots of sand scratches. Complete improper preparation is what this is a result of. You can see the reflection of the lift. Huge wave. Some of them even actually look like small dents. But there is a rather coarse sand scratches throughout the entire paint job. And again, that's just poor prep. That's being in a hurry. I would say this is at best a $1,000 paint job. And again, there you can see big waves in the quarter behind the wheel opening. Like those actually look almost like dents. More about the paint, you can actually see a dent right there in the hood, along with pretty serious orange peel. If you look at the reflection of the light in the paint, you can see some rather serious orange peel. Here again, you have some fish eyes, and it's hard to see in the video, but just lots and lots of sand scratches. Above the car, I'll do my best to get this in there. You can see right here, overspray on the moldings, all along here. The vehicle was not completely disassembled when it was painted. Another piece of evidence to that end is over here. You look at the wiring harness and you can actually see blue paint on the wires. So it doesn't even appear like the harness was out of it when the car got painted. Again, everything has been painted over. Here we are in the trunk of the Roadrunner. I'm going to bring the camera over here and allow this to focus, and you can see all the existing rust that's actually still in the vehicle. There's quite severe. This is up in the trunk gutter area. There appears to be some sort of yellow, I don't know what. Not really familiar with what that is. Whatever it was used to pack in the rust before it was covered up. As you can see on this side, it was just packed in. You see the seam. There's supposed to be a seam running right through here, and it's completely filled in. I'll show you what it should look like on this side. You can see the seam here. This seam is completely missing because it's completely packed full of Bondo and silicone or whatever that other stuff is, and painted over. Again, look at the reflection of the light, a lot of orange peel. There's some fish eyes there. You can see the reflection of the light there, that is not what I would consider to be a show car finish. Very rough. It's here that the car was not taken apart before paint. That actually has blue paint on it across the bottom of it. Lots of sand scratches and things on the window. You can see there, if I can get those, yeah, there you go. Those are sand scratches from just carelessness with sandpaper. Kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. The passenger side door opening, I wanted to show how it's supposed to look. You see there's a nice seam there. That's where the factory quarter panel wrapped around the door frame. And then on this side, that seam is actually completely missing, which would tell me that it is indeed packed full of Bondo. As you can see, it's actually completely gone. There's remnants of it right there. Up here, it's completely smoothed over, which tells me that there's some body filler. The vehicle, I believe, was being advertised as being a nut and bolt restoration, which means to me that the car was completely disassembled, which it clearly was not, as the hood latch hardware has been painted over, firewall hardware has been painted over, and probably the most ridiculous is there's actually orange engine paint on the carburetor. The carburetor was not removed when the engine was painted. I believe the engine was painted in the car, which is, again, not a nut and bolt restoration. Here we have this electric fan that clearly should not be here. When the vehicle came in, it was overheating, and this fan wasn't even working. So it's there and it doesn't work, and the vehicle still overheats. I have some electrical connections that were made improperly. It looks like what they did was they just took a couple wires, stripped them back, wrapped them up together with some electrical tape. That is not what I would consider to be a proper electrical connection. The voltage regulator that's on here is actually from a later model dual field vehicle. Improper for the car and questionably wired, as is evidenced by this wad of wires and electrical tape here. One of the wires that normally does not get used on the electronic control unit, for whatever reason, is actually being run to the alternator, which it does not belong. So again, there's some questionable wiring going on under the hood. Here we are on the outside. Fit and finish on this car is pretty bad. Bumper is loose and banging up against the body. I wanted to show the steering box. When I rotate this shaft back and forth, you can actually see the box move. The steering box is actually loose in the car. My overall impression on this car is it's a rather amateurish restoration. Certainly not what I would consider to be a $40,000 car at all. Top of the mark for a standard 383 Roadrunner of this year is about 38 to 39, but that's for a 100% flawless restoration, of which this is not. A true nut and bolt restoration in our dictionary means the car comes completely apart. Every component gets restored and reassembled. This car was very obviously not completely taken apart. Most of the components that are in here look to be actually original. The clock doesn't work. There's an overheating issue. It obviously has some fit and finish issues, some rust issues, a lot of paint and body issues. I mean, to properly paint this car at this point, you're looking at between $15,000 and $20,000, as the car has to completely come back down to bare metal, as there is a lot of compromised body work in here. Unfortunately, it is what it is.